on a rainy November day. There's just something about this town that I was like, okay, this is different.
Hello, I'm Kalashian for Live and Invest Overseas, and today I am joined by Su Guillory. Is that right? Guillory?
You got it. You nailed
Okay.
it.
Su Guillory, who's originally from the US, but has been living in the south of Italy in the Calabria region for how long now, Sue?
Over 3 years, 3.5.
Excellent. Okay. So tell us a little bit about your background before you moved here and what brought all this about.
The short answer is an empty nest and a divorce. So, as many of us do, who go through divorce, I was looking for, what's next in my life. And when I was married, we'd always traveled together. And so I timidly began to do some solo travel, primarily to Italy, and discovered I really loved both solo travel and Italy. And as my son was in high school, I started thinking, what do I want next? Because I was in San Diego. It was beautiful, but it was very expensive. And I was thinking long term, I thought, this is not really what I want to do for the rest of my life. So I started traveling a lot more to Italy and really thinking about where would I want to live. And as everyone knows, Italy has so many beautiful places, but it's just a matter of I made a list. During the pandemic, I had a spreadsheet. It was like, I wanted to have, at the time, I said 30,000 people or fewer, near the sea, within an hour of an airport. So I had a very specific list of places. Landed in kind of the South region and started looking at the bigger cities. And then when travel opened up during the pandemic, I started visiting. And I didn't find what I was looking for a while. Or actually Tropea, which is, if you know anything about Calabria, you've probably heard of it because we're a touristy town. Sheila, another little seaside town, and then Calabria, which is the biggest city in the area, and nothing really felt right. And on a rainy November day, somebody had suggested I try Soverato, which is at the bottom of the chart of the boot, that's Italy. And it was raining, it was cold. There's just something about this town that I was like, okay, this is different. So I spent just a few days there, but I made some contacts, decided, yeah, let me give it a try. So I found a rental, and in 2023, after my son packed him off, shipped him to his life in Florida, and I packed my two cats on a plane and came here and settled in, and have never looked back.
Amazing. That's such a good story. I love that so much because I also have that connection with places. And I talk about it like a romance you'd have with a person. You feel that chemistry with a place the way that you do with a person. And, a place can check every box off of a list and still not speak to you the same way. And you can get to a place, on the other hand, and it be the worst of circumstances, like everything goes wrong in your adventure there, but you feel a connection to the place. So I don't know what it is, past lives maybe or something, but there's a chemistry that people have with places. And so, I always tell people, don't ignore that gut instinct, listen to your inner person.
Exactly. Yeah. And because like all I could do was look online. I mean, I traveled through all these towns in Google Maps. Like I knew the town, but what I didn't understand is I couldn't feel the soul. Where could I see if there were like 500 stairs to get to the only grocery store? So,
of course, yeah.
There's a lot that you can't discover, obsessing with Google Maps.
Yeah. Yeah, you've got to see it in person. All right, so you did a lot of Italy research and scouting and race and discovery before you made this permanent move. But so did you look anywhere other than Italy? I know you said you did some solo travel there and it really spoke to you, but did any other country really come into it for you, or any other region of the world, or was this it? One and done.
It's funny because I have a degree in French. My family is from Louisiana, which has a French culture. French history. And if you had asked me 20 years ago if I was ever going to move to another country, I would have said it would have to be France. But having mastered the language more or less in French, I started studying Italian. And when I visited the first time, there was just this welcoming with my little baby Italian efforts that I had never really felt in France.
No, they don't love the baby efforts. Not as much as Southern cultures do.
Yeah. And it was just like, I put all my focus on France and French my whole life. But there's this other country nearby, and that's interesting too. And it has enough of the, I don't want to say culture, but just European culture that it wasn't like Asia where it'd be completely a different thing. It
Right.
was familiar enough, and the food I knew, and so really no, I never thought about another place. It's funny to me that it ended up being Italy, which I had zero connection to. Everyone here is like, oh, but you're Italian, and I'm like, I'm not. They're like, but I mean, like your grandparents were, and I'm like, no, I'm French, and they just were like, huh, and you came here.
Right. I honestly, I'm based in Paris and I get that question frequently. What are you doing here? Like, why would you move
Yeah.
here? People are so stumped by it. And yeah, it's
Yeah.
a funny thing. All right. So I guess it was kind of just a new chapter in life. You were coming to this transition phase and you were looking for something new. But how did this idea ever even get planted to leave the country? You know, it seems like such an extreme. You know, most people maybe come to a life transition, empty nesters, they might downsize, get a condo or something. It seems like such a big idea. So how did that even come into your head?
Well, when I was married the first time, we had talked about when our son graduated, we could spend a year or two traveling to different countries and living somewhere for 3 months, and flitting about. And so when that, plan kind of got destroyed, I started thinking, oh, I could still do it. But I really thought about it. I'm like, I really don't want to live out of a suitcase for 2 years, So I thought, okay, of all these places that we had talked about going, like, where would I want to be? And I think I had probably added Italy to the list. And this was maybe before I'd even been. And I was like, Italy. Like, why do I need to live out of a suitcase if I could just plant roots?
Yeah.
And I think also just in America, I grew up in Arkansas. I spent 5 years in Orlando and then 12 years in San Diego. So I never really felt like I had strong roots.
Mm-hmm.
And there was nowhere that I could imagine I wanted to live in the US. Why not start over in Italy?
Yeah, actually, that's a really fun story. I mean, it's so nice to have that flexibility and like freedom of thought to follow this kind of whim of an idea. But did you ever have any, sudden fears, reservations along this journey, whether before you made the move or after you made the move? Did you ever have a moment of panic? Like, what am I doing? How did I get down this road?
Panic, yes. I will say regrets, never. Even when things got, we can get to after the I got here stories, but yeah, of course, is this the right thing? And I just kept telling myself, look, if you hate it, you can come back. Like nothing is irreversible.
Exactly.
It was a big step, but and I because I'm a very, I'm a planner. I didn't take this lightly, and I'm an expat coach now, so I have women who say, I want to move to Italy. I've never been to Italy. I don't speak Italian. And I'm like, girl,
Red flag.
So I'm like, please just visit, spend as long as you can in a place. But I had done the work. So I knew it wasn't going to be, I thought it would not be so much of a culture shock. So yeah, I mean, of course there's panic when you completely untether yourself from the world. But I always knew it was the right step.
Great. So what about everyone around you, friends and family? Did they have anything to say about this?
I don't think they were really surprised, just knowing my personality. It was more envy. Like, my gosh.
Oh, well done. That's great.
When you tell people you're moving to Europe, they're like, that's my dream. Like, everyone has the dream, and I'm like, so do it. And I'm like, oh, I have a lot of excuses. Why not? So I had no excuses. So, my son, I mean, he's 21 now, but I asked him later, like, what do you think? And he's like, it's fine. Like, he knew that I love travel. So it fit right with the need. It wasn't an inconvenience that I was, I could either live across the country or across an ocean.
Right.
Kind of equal when you're not close to family physically.
So what exactly were you looking for? You don't seem like you're of retirement age, ready to be, fully untethered from the working world. So were you hoping to find a new career here? Did you come with the idea to do freelance work or to be contractual with a company in the US? How did that work for you?
So I've been a freelance writer for 20 years. So I work from home. It's, that was the easiest part of any of this, is that I didn't need to find an employer here to sponsor me, nor am I even yet comfortable or skilled enough to write in Italian professionally. So I was just able to just take my clients with me and just keep doing the same work. So I actually got the self-employment visa, because this was before the digital nomad visa had been released. So that would have been another option. Everyone told me the self-employment visa was very difficult to get. I got it. So I don't know how hard it is for other people. So.
Great. And so, sorry, this is a little bit off topic, but I'm curious, do you own a property there or are you renting?
So long story short, I fell in love 6 months after I came here. We now live With the person, yes. And the country, yeah.
It's like
All
with
of
the
it.
house, with
A
it.
country, a man, his family, and now a house. So
Nice.
he moved a year ago, like now a year ago, to the house that he lived in until he was 5 years old.
Oh,
So
wow.
it's 200 years old. So it was just the family in Italy, everyone inherits houses from each side of the family. So they had it, they were renting it out. And one day I said, let's go look at the house. And I was just curious. We live by the sea. And now we're in the mountains 15 minutes from the sea. And I saw the view of the sea and I was like, oh my gosh, like, this is amazing. I was ready to buy an apartment in the beach town. But this is pretty and beautiful and a whole different experience. So yeah, so we own this house.
Fantastic. Wow, that sounds great.
Mm.
So, first impressions, what was the biggest surprise? I know you had already been spending a lot of time in Italy, so I doubt there was any kind of giant culture shock that you weren't expecting. But once you actually got settled in, what has been the biggest challenge to trying to integrate into your new lifestyle or to, shift in mindset kind of thing?
I thought that like culturally it wasn't going to be a big shift, but it ended up being more than I expected because coming on vacation is one thing, dealing with the day to day is a complete different thing. And it's still, even 3.5 years down the road, difficult for me to sometimes let go of my American expectations.
Yeah.
So a story from the early days, I went to the place to get Wi-Fi. In America, you go, you get your modem, you take it home, you plug it in, it works. Here, I took it home and it didn't work for like 5 days because, like I say, somebody didn't push the big red button. Like, you just have to wait for everything to happen on their time frame. And I think that's the most frustrating thing for me and my clients is that like it's not going to happen the way you think it should. You think you can go to an administrative office to have them stamp a piece of paper, but it's going to take an hour because they have to type it in the system and have coffee and then ask questions. And so it's very hard to watch when you are used to technology and smoother processes. But I have to remind myself, like, Italy was here first. It's not going to change for me. And I have to change, I have to accept it, or I can be mad and go home. So that's
right. And then that's only hurting you in the end. Nobody else cares.
Right. Yes, Italy does not care.
So did you get any help? How did you navigate all of that? It seems like that's a kind of part of Italy where they're not really used to a lot of foreigners, a lot of expat, and there's no huge expat community down there that I know of. So I feel like this was a kind of bumpy dirt road for you.
So I handled the visa paperwork with the help of a law firm out of Milan. So they helped with that. They helped initially with the residency permit I had to fill out when I first got here. I was lucky to meet a few expats who just were willing, even though I had studied Italian for 10 years before I moved here, I still was really insecure about going to, again, bureaucratic offices where they don't speak English. They are not used to foreigners. So just for them to go with me and just make sure that I understood and to help me get through the process. So, somebody took me to go get like my health card and just things that I would not know where to go. Mm-hmm. So I was really fortunate in that. But I say expats and some Italians too, just were really welcoming and wanted to help me get settled.
It's great. So give us a little tidbit, a little taste of what daily life is for you, especially compared to how it was back home. What does a day in the life look like for you here?
I'll give you today. It's a great example. Completely a different life. So the woman who cuts my hair, my mother-in-law's hair, lives around the corner and she does house calls. She loves. So she came this morning. We had our haircuts in the kitchen, cleaned that up, had lunch with my husband. I've gotten really into herbalism and collecting herbs to cook with or to make medicine. So after lunch, I just walked over by the river and picked some nettle and just washed it to make something with it later. So I laugh at like how different this is than like the, Instagram worthy bars I used to go to for cocktails with my friends. And now I'm putting on rubber boots and, hiking in the mountains and collecting herbs, but I love it. I'm a different person and I'm better for it.
Oh, that's fantastic. So I was about to ask, like, do you have any new hobbies or new routines? But it sounds like that's it. And that's so interesting. Yeah. I mean, it is so easy in Italy. I think people kind of underestimate how easy it is to live so close to nature in Europe and in Italy. I've known expats who went 100% off-grid, self-sufficient. They butchered their own animals. Like that was the extent to which they took this. So obviously you don't have to go that far.
No way. I don't butcher, but my husband's family, they are or were butchers. So his grandfather has passed away, but like he was a butcher. Our retired uncle was a butcher. So every year we raise a pig, they slaughter it, and we make sausage. So I've now made it 3 times. And so
Wow.
I turned a little crank.
Yeah.
And I really loved getting to know all these traditions that in the mountains they still do, like making the sausage, making bread in a wood burning oven.
Mhm.
What else? We don't make a ton of pasta, but we make wine, pick olives.
Yeah, this is another thing
chestnuts
that
in the
people don't
fall.
realize. It's so easy. You have a few trees
Yeah.
on your property, you pick them, you take them to the co-op, and you get a few
Yeah.
bottles of oil or wine out of it.
Yeah, exactly. And so I love having my hands involved in the food. And I'm just so proud to say, hey, these olives that you're snacking on, like I picked these, or, this wine, which is not going to win any awards. My father-in-law thinks it is the best wine in the world. But, I'm just so proud to have participated. And
Yeah,
I think, growing up in America, like we don't have that connection to our food. We
it's rare.
buy
Yeah.
is already wrapped. It came from a farm with 5,000 cows. And here, like I've met the animals, and I play with the baby chicks when they're hatched, and unfortunately eat them a few months later. But it's a different relationship with food, and I think it's something that I'm really loving. But I'm also shifting out of the convenience, prepackaged everything that I knew in America.
Mm-hmm. So, all right, we've talked about language, and now we're kind of talking about how you're integrating into the community with food and stuff like that. You clearly had a lot of time to study Italian before you made this commitment, and I am assuming that has gone to help you a long way. What would you say to somebody who came in to any part of Italy, but specifically to your area, without any prior knowledge of Italian, and how would they deal with that?
Study. First, I think if you're going to live in another country, even if they speak English, it's respectful to learn as much as you can. You get a lot further. People are a lot more willing to help you if you even, like we said, struggle. But I know I have an American client. She's retired. She moved to Sorato, the beach town I used to live in, and she's ashamed to make mistakes. And I say, look, this has been my biggest lesson is I make mistakes still every day. I've been studying 13, 14 years. Like you can, like the feminine masculine for verbs. Like you have to do that in French and Italian. I mess it up every day. And my husband like corrects me. I'm like, yeah, okay, whatever. But you have to make mistakes to learn. And I just think that's the thing. Like as adults, we don't like to feel insecure by not being able to communicate.
We're not used to
But
being beginners anymore. You have to
yes,
be
yeah,
you have to be comfortable with being a newbie, you know?
yeah. And it's letting go of that ego.
Yeah,
Because it's
exactly.
really hard to make friends when your level of speaking is like a toddler. And you're like, hi, I like it's nice, but eventually, like the more and I think about even this woman coming to cut our hair today, they speak a dialect in the mountains. And I'm learning it. I'm not great at speaking it, but I think, oh, gosh, 2 years in, I can understand so much more of what she says than I used to. And it's just, saying don't, and she doesn't speak English, like don't default to English with me if you speak it. Like I want to speak the language or the dialect and just trying. But yeah, I mean, start with Duolingo if you have to, but like there's a million programs online that you can do. Listening, watching TV, just whatever you can do to immerse and just hear the language, I think.
Yeah, great advice. So if somebody watching this video were thinking, this is an interesting idea, this sounds maybe exciting, maybe I might be interested, what would you say to them? What would your advice or your first step be for them?
Visit, and if you can, pick a town and stay. I mean, I would say minimum a week. If you can stay 3 weeks, a month, do it. Because the longer you stay in a place, I say go to a bar, which we call it a bar, but it's where you go get coffee. Have coffee every day. Talk to the person making your coffee. Just get to know them because inevitably, maybe they'll help you find a rental down the road, or you become friends with them, and it leads to so many connections. So when you're not seen as a tourist who's here for a couple of days, people see you differently. And so if you say, I want to live here, I'm getting to know the community, doors open. So I think that's the first step, and then just do the research of what it looks like and just understand it won't be a vacation. I mean, at the beginning, yes, it was, if you look at the stages of culture shock, the beginning was honeymoon, right? We go do all the touristy things, we eat and drink all the things. And then after a while, you feel like, okay, this is life. I can't live like this every day. And you kind of settle into a routine that is a little bit different. But yeah, I mean, and no regrets, just it's a big step, but 100% it's worth it.
Exactly. As you said in the beginning, none of it is undoable. If anything, you've just had a fun adventure and that's it. So is there anything that you would have done differently? You've had this whole big experience. Is there anything that you would have shortcutted or wish you had known to begin with?
I wish I had known that expat coaches exist around the 6 or 8 month mark. I started kind of coming down from that honeymoon. And I don't want to say that I was depressed, but I started Googling like expat depression. I just kind of came up with this term. It's a term, and there are expat coaches that help with this. So I hired one. I actually am one now for this very reason, because I think, I'm very self sufficient. I thought I could do this all myself, but not having been an expat, it's hard to really prepare for that. And so I think the vast emotions I was going through, I was unprepared for, and nobody really could understand. My friends in the States were like, "You live in Italy, what are you complaining about?" People here, like you said, like they don't understand, like, really, you moved to the other country, they're strange. So it was good to have someone I could talk to and kind of also think about goals, because this was such a big goal. Like, I'm gonna move to Italy. And then I got here and I'm like, now what?
Right.
So just to kind of think about the future was really important for me. So that's something that I help my clients with too, is just, mastering not only the logistics of getting here, but then what?
Right. That's such an important point. Yeah, I've been an expat my whole life, and I've experienced it in many different iterations. And the season has a big thing to do with it too. I'll just throw that out there. The first introduction I had into this was living in Ireland. And when the sun doesn't come up until 11 a.m. and it sets at 3:34, and you realize, wait, why am I depressed? Oh, right, there's no vitamin D. There are these things that we don't realize are different. I doubt you're having the sun issue in southern Italy, but there's all these different factors to keep in mind. And becoming isolated and having that what next feeling, or that panic feeling, is absolutely true to every single expat I've known, even if they've had a lifetime's experience in being an expat. So you mentioned how preparing for the future, or at least having some kind of vague idea of what the future might be, is important in all of this. So what is your outlook? Where do you see your future going from here?
I've been asking myself that question lately. Like, I literally had everything I, manifested, everything I wanted. Now what? I started making herbal products like skin creams and lip balms and things. And I'd like to see where I can take that. So, may just be focusing on how to navigate a different kind of career, because I've always, done like services, and now I'm actually physically making products, and also learning, like, I have no website, I do no marketing, it's just word of mouth, which is really cool and interesting. Like the pharmacist texted me the other day, and checked the pharmacist and asked for medicine. And she's like, "Hey, what is this stuff you're making? I want some." And I'm like, "Oh, how did you hear about it?" So yeah, I'd really like to kind of explore what that looks like in the small town, and just see, letting go of my American expectations of what success as a business looks like, and just embracing what it is here.
Excellent. Well, thank you. That's such a good ending note. Thank you so much for taking the time today, Sue. It was so lovely to talk to you. And thank you, everyone, for watching today.